Broadcasting from an undisclosed location due to reasons of security and therefore insecurity. Questioning the popular reality. Raising the musical dead and underachievers to godlike status. Poking holes in the fabric of pop music and striking fear in the hearts of Justin Bieber fans all over the world. It's Jaandlu Underground. With your host, the one, the only, the indubitable, the instantly ignorable Mr. Andlu.
December 2010, I was raped by a friend of a friend who had not even known me in 24 hours. He hurt me. He humiliated me. I kept it a secret for months. I didn't want to tell anybody. I was asked by an attorney why I didn't scream because my parents were so close. I really didn't know how to answer her, other than the fact that I was scared. I take a pregnancy test a few months later. It's positive. On Mother's Day weekend, I tell my mom what had happened to me, and she just cried. She told me it was going to be okay. I was hurting, and I get asked all the time by lawyers if it was really you would have had an abortion, and that's not the case. I love my son. I don't see that man in him whatsoever. He's my son. I have a 22-month-old beautiful baby boy, and sometimes people ask me if, since I was raped, why would I keep him, because that's just a travesty on me, but it's not. He's an angel. The most arrogant question someone has ever asked me was probably, they told me more than they asked that I'm a monster for giving birth to a monster, and that I should have killed him when he was in my womb. I have no friends now because of the decisions I made. I work, I go to school to make a life for me and my son. This man raped me. And now I am fighting custody to make sure that my son won't get taken away from me, because he is the love of my life and I don't want to lose him. And I'm scared now because
that was the story of a young lady named Piper. And unfortunately, she's not the only one with that story. In 31 states across the United States, in 31 states, convicted rapists can sue for custody and visitation rights. A rapist, a man who's violated a woman, now can add insult to injury. And it's one of the saddest things that I can think of. tonight we're going to talk about this. I have a gentleman who's trying to raise awareness about this because I think that I don't know how people can want these laws, and that's what we're going to talk about. On the phone with me right now, I have Kyle Karges. And hey, how's it going, Kyle?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Kyle, you are working on a project called 31 States.
That's correct.
And you have interviewed, that was your interview that you did with Piper. That poor young lady is still struggling, correct? That's hasn't gone to court yet? Or...
which court? There's been plenty of court appearances, but they're still in the middle of the custody battle.
Okay, they're in the middle of the custody battle. That's so amazing to me. Why don't you go ahead and start off by telling us a little bit about, we'll get back to Piper and her story because we have her mother calling in at the break. But why don't you tell me about what inspired you to start this film project and to start to raise awareness about these obviously misogynistic and a little bit, in my mind, very kind of backwoods type of laws that are meant to, I don't even understand it. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about that? Go ahead, Kyle.
Well, I started kind of with the same feeling of I have no idea how this can actually exist in 2013 America. It all started when I was doing a PSA for a local rape crisis center, and it was on people, if you see it happening, most people don't actually even speak up if they see any kind of sexual assault or any kind of warning signs of anything happening. And that kind of started to weigh on me. And the PSA was called Silence is the Enemy. And that is actually driving the documentary about getting people to stand up and stand together, know that we're not exploiting them, but that we're trying to get one voice out of many people telling the same story, and then I believe that'll be very powerful. It started a few months ago when I was up on the internet, probably later than I should have been, and was curious and was just looking around CNN, and I saw an article, an interview with a survivor by the name of Shauna Pruitt. This was in August 2012 was when the article had come out, and this had happened to her as well, her last year in college. And she went through the entire custody battle with her rapist, and she decided that she was never going to be ignorant of the law again. So she became an attorney, and she's at the forefront of this movement, fighting for these women, and that inspired me to get up and start trying to contact her and find out, how big is this issue? Is it small? Is it only certain states? Is it, everywhere? And the more you delve into it, the bigger and bigger the issue really is. And it is everywhere. And the problem is no one's talking about it. And that's the only huge problem about the issue.
Well, and I think with a lot of rape cases, no matter what, people don't like to talk about rape, period. And I think that's the heart of the problem, is that there is kind of this issue. One of the things that they've done a survey, and most students think that up to 50% of rape reports are fabricated. In reality, only 2 to 8% of charges might be false.
That's correct.
But people really, I think, we have this almost, like, we don't want to believe. It's like such a horrid thing that we don't want to believe it happens. And that if somebody's reporting it, then they're obviously lying and trying to manipulate somebody or trying to, who knows what. And so that it then creates a problem where people don't want to report it because they don't want to seem like that type of person that's calling rape, So less than half of all rapes are actually reported, right?
Yeah, it's like 54 to 80%. It's hard to know exactly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, yeah. And how can we even tell?
Yeah.
And then most people think, also, I think that, you know, a rapist gets caught, gets convicted, and gets sentenced to jail, but only 3% of rapists spend even a day in jail.
That's correct.
That blows my mind.
It blew mine too when I first heard it.
I mean, how in this society have we come to this point where we can logic rape? Is that what we're doing? We're like going logically, rape can't happen, and if you're, I don't know, like it's such a bizarre concept. I'm having a hard time understanding how people can be so blind to it, and how people can justify it, and all these rapists get away with it. And then because now, furthering Piper's story, later on in that story, she tells how now she's up having to pay this guy $1,500 a month for child support. How?
Yeah, and in most of these states now, we started out, when I started, it was 31 states. I believe the accurate number now is 24, just to clarify. Okay. But in any state, the ones that actually have laws on the books at the moment that are preventing this only deal with convicted rapists, to stop anything. And so you're talking 3% of all rapes in that state are anything that can actually sever ties with the rapist if they have a child. And anything else, it's 100%. So it's crazy.
Oh my God. So now you are making a film about this, and what are you doing with your website? And let's just start it off. How do people really wrap their head around? I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this. How do people wrap their head around this?
We had an anchor who was talking to Angie a few weeks ago from CNN and spent like 2 hours on the phone with her, and he did the same thing that I did the first time I heard this from her. And then with what you're doing now, I don't understand. Can you go back? I don't understand. How did it go that far? There are so many different avenues, and going into a documentary, you have an idea of what you want to say, and then as these stories come out and that each one is individual to that individual, things change. It's kind of like Alice in Wonderland, where you start to pull on the thread and you don't know how far the rabbit hole is going to go, but it keeps going. Yeah. There's a lot. There's so many different aspects to this, like children's rights. Like, should these people have custody of a child if they are a violent offender?
The
list keeps going. There's a women's rights issue of, specifically there's a case in Massachusetts right now where the guy was convicted of, I believe he was 16 or 18 and she was 14 at the time, convicted that he did rape her in court, and then they gave him 16 years probation.
Hold on, let's see who we have on the phone. We do like to take phone calls. Let's see who's chiming in. You're on the Jaandlu Underground. Who is this?
This is Angela Grog, Piper's mom.
Oh, hi, Piper's mom. Hi, how's it going, Angie?
It's going good. How are you?
Good. We were just starting. We were going to have you call after the break, but hang in there. We're going to bring you into the conversation in 1 minute.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Go ahead, Kyle, with your story.
This is the case in Massachusetts, and he was convicted in court, and instead of going to jail, they gave him 16 years probation and forced him to pay child support, sent it from criminal court to family court, and now the victim is tethered to the rapist for 16 years, because once a victim or survivor accepts child support, then the court sees him as a parental figure and has no issue giving them custody or visitation or overnight visitation.
Okay, but what about the fact that he is a convicted rapist? I mean, that's what I don't understand. How are they letting this man who raped a 14-year-old?
Yep.
Obviously, he's a pedophile. So, how are they justifying? I don't understand how they're justifying letting a pedophile have custody of a child that is because of the fact that he was a pedophile rapist.
I don't know that answer. I'm just blown away by that as well.
We actually have a guy here that actually does work in family courts.
Okay.
Let's ask him that question. Go ahead. Do you have anything? How does that happen? Do you any insight?
In at least where I'm from, the guiding light of how they figure out a custody situation is the best interest of the child. So it's hard to imagine a situation where someone who's convicted of rape could be seen as a person that would be in the best interest of the child for that kid to be with. So definitely the victim in that case would want to be really proactive, talk to attorneys, talk to victims' rights people, and make her case heard and make it heard effectively, and hopefully justice would prevail in that case.
All right. Now, Angie, it's Angie, right? Or is it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's Angie.
Okay, Angie. Now, in your daughter's case, she was how old when she was raped?
She was 14.
She was 14. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the gentleman is. Do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about her attacker? Now, as I understand it, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about her attacker.
Well, he was a soldier. We're a military family. My husband served 24 years in the United States Army. Our oldest daughter is now currently serving on active duty. She's a lieutenant, and at the time, on December 21st of 2010, we were having our, family game night, getting ready for Christmas. And my 14-year-old daughter's best friend, they'd asked if some friends could come over that she knew. We did not know them. My daughter did not know any of them. The fact that we were at home, we said yes, begrudgingly. My oldest daughter said, "What's the worst that can happen, Mom? It's Christmas. Let them have some friends over." And, of course, we regret that. And along with the two high school boys was this young man who was in the Army. Our daughter had just gotten back from basic and AIT. Again, we were military. I was military, my husband. So we were like, okay, Piper's a freshman. She's in JROTC. This is not a bad thing, because when you're military, you're immediately family. There are no strangers. There's no bad guys in uniforms. So we allowed this young man to come into our home.
Yeah.
And we were upstairs. I had just gotten out of the hospital. I had major surgery, so I could not go down in the basement. He actually raped my daughter in a room full of people. To this day, everybody says they didn't know anything had happened. I find that hard to believe. He came running upstairs after whatever happened in the basement happened, after he raped our daughter. Mm-hmm. And we were taking the first set of pizzas and stuff out of the oven, and my husband asked him, he's like, we're about to eat. You guys are going to stay. And he said, no, my mom wants us home. We've got to get home. And I said, well, why don't you guys stay and eat? He said, no. He shook my husband's hand, and he said, thank you. And my husband and I actually commented that night how weird that was. But my husband chalked it up to the fact that this young man was a private, and my husband was an officer, or had been an officer, and he knew that because we had talked in the kitchen. So my husband said he was probably nervous, and we just chalked it up to that.
Right.
5.5 months later, on Mother's Day, my daughter came to me, and we were gone out of town, and she told me that she had been raped, and that she was about 5.5 months pregnant, she thought. And that's when everything just kind of, the bottom dropped out for my husband and I. And we immediately called the authorities, went to the military CID, went to the local authorities, and that's when everything just happened for us.
Yeah, and I just recently watched a report not too long ago on the rape in the military, and
yes,
that is a real issue that's really covered up,
yes.
just because of the general structure of the military, where you have kind of this, you know, you can only report to your commanding officer, and if your commanding officer is the one that raped you, you know, then you're kind of SOL, you know.
Well, you're SOL. Well, let's back up there. My husband was an officer. It doesn't necessarily even have to be your commanding officer, but basically you're being raped again by your command, because the commanding officer has a very vested interest of making this go away. Because in the military, it's kind of like a CEO or a manager. Anything that your soldiers do, that goes on your OER, which is your officer evaluation report every year. That's a make or break deal for an officer and a first sergeant. So they don't want that information out. They don't want to have to go to their battalion commander, their brigade commander, and so on and so forth, and say, hey, I have an NCO or a private or whomever that has been accused of raping a soldier. And in our case...
Angie, I hate to cut you off, but we're going to have to go to a break real quick, and then we will be right back, and we will talk more about this.
Okay.
Katori Magazine has been reborn. New articles, new features for those who demand to stay on top with what you care about. Music, art, politics. KatoriMagazine.com. A different kind of magazine for a different kind of generation. Katori Magazine.
Connectivity Solutions is a full-service, fully licensed, bonded, and insured communications connectivity company offering services to business and residential customers. We specialize in complete network cable plant design and installation, telephone systems installation, CCTV, gigabit over Ethernet, fiber optics, and much more. Visit us online at consolutions.com. That's CONN solutions.com, or call us at 818-712-9100. How can we interconnect your digital life? Connectivity Solutions. At Healthy You Herbs, we are an authorized new body distributor. We offer only 100% all-natural herbal products with no additives or preservatives at the lowest possible prices. We pride ourselves on providing the best products for your well-being and to ensure you have access to essential supplements vital to the human body. Visit us online at healthyyouherbs.com. Healthy You Herbs, your health depends on us.
All right, and we're back. And we have Angie on the line. I want you to go ahead, Angie. You were talking about rape in the military, a person that reports to their CEO, and then they don't, about just someone else there raping them. They don't want to, the CEO, the commanding officer doesn't want to report that to be on the reports because that would make him look bad, right? Is that what you were saying?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And the military came up with a system called, you have a restricted report and an unrestricted report. If I'm a soldier and I go to my commander and first sergeant and I say, I have been raped, I've been sexually assaulted by a fellow soldier, they will tell you, okay, you can do an undisclosed report, and that's going to go through the chain of command. And now, Private Snuffy, everybody's going to find out. You know, your whole chain of command is going to know what you've been through. You're going to have to tell your story over and over again. Or you can do a restricted report, and it will never leave this room. It'll be between you, myself, and the first sergeant or commander, whoever is in command. And most of them do that. Okay, now, the way the regulation is written, if there is a second allegation of sexual assault, domestic violence, or any kind of violent crime, that first allegation immediately is supposed to become undisclosed. In our case, we had the CID agents come to our home in early fall before Piper gave birth, and he was doing some follow-up questions with our family, and he said to me, he said, Mrs. Grog, I need to tell you. He said, there's an alleged second victim. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, I went down there to the base where he is at. I reported in. They were like, why are you here? He's already legaled up. He's got an attorney. He's already invoked his rights. The CID agent said, what are you talking about? He didn't even know I was coming. And they're like, you need to come in. And when he did, they're like, he's been accused by a soldier of sexual assault. We knew at that point this man is going to prison. He's raped our daughter. Now he's been accused again of raping a soldier on path.
Right. So he should go to jail.
Do what?
Yeah, so he will go to jail. So he went He did get convicted.
No, he did not. No, he did not. Because here's the thing: in the military, we thought that immediately that was going to become unrestricted. However, that only applies if he is accused of raping or abusing a second soldier. It doesn't count if he abuses or rapes a civilian, a child, or anybody else.
Even though that's a child of a military family.
Yeah, it did not matter. It did not matter. That does not apply because the regulation states that. And so that soldier that accused him, I have just received a letter from the State Pro, which is the Sexual Assault Prevention something. I don't know the whole acronym, but it's the State Pro's office in Washington, D.C. And they said that the second victim, because when we went to trial, they tried to get him to come forward, and it was a male. It turned out we thought it was a female for the longest time, and finally the prosecutors told me, they were like, Mrs. Grog, because Piper wanted to meet what we thought was a young lady, and just to tell her thank you for coming forward. And finally they had to tell me, they're like, Mrs. Grog, she's not a female. And I said, what do you mean? They're like, no, it's a male soldier that's made this allegation against this other soldier. I have never been more disgusted in my life. And when we got to the trial in October, right before the trial of last year, that soldier was like, absolutely not. He recanted. He wanted nothing to do with it. And we were told that he said, I want to get on with my life. I want to forget about it. However, the official memo I got from the Army a few months ago stated that he, after some time of reflection, that he realized that his injuries were caused by natural causes. And he recanted because he was so intoxicated that he's not sure what happened to him. Okay, give me a break. Give me a break. The 82nd Airborne has more male-on-male sexual assaults than any unit in the entire United States Army. It's an epidemic. And out of the over 26,000 reported accusations of rape, I think 13,000 were investigated. 3,000 were investigated. 389, between 389 and 400 made it to trial. And my daughter's was one of those. You know, we had a male jury of 6 members. They deliberated for less than 46 minutes. One of his defense tactics, that's another regulation that soldiers are allowed to use, was, in good conscience, he assumed she was 18. He thought she was 18. So now the Army has, and that was put into effect in August of last year. So now they've given themselves another out to get out of being responsible and prudent and putting these violators, these predators, in prison. Because they don't want to, we have the weakest, and you know what, I love the military, but right now, we have a very weak military of doing the right thing. I mean, it is just horrendous what is going on.
My brother was in the military, and one of the things that really impressed me was that, you know, he came back, you know, he was kind of a hothead and whatnot, but he came back and he really learned a lot about respect, and he learned a lot about responsibility, and you know, it toughened him up. It made him a man. It made him a better father for his kids, I'm sure. And he didn't have kids till later, but I'm sure that that's part of what makes him a great dad, is that he was a great soldier. And I have no doubt that the military teaches discipline, but this seems so counterintuitive to what the military is about. Although I don't know, because let's bring Kyle back into this conversation. Let's talk about the reasons that people rape, because rape, from what I understand, is really an act of aggression and not a sexual act. Is my understanding on that correct?
Based on talking to experts, it is about violence, power, and control, and not really about sex. And it's disappointing that universities such as Yale no longer report rape, but they say there are cases of non-consensual sex is how they actually report rape at Yale University right now. And I find that offensive because it still says sex.
Right.
In there, and rape and sexual assault is not sex in any way, shape, or form.
No, that's what I guess I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around. Well, I don't know. Personally, I'm wondering if the military isn't a breeding ground for rape, because it is kind of it trains you to be aggressive. It trains you to be, to seek power. To have power over somebody else. If you're a private, you want to become a private first class so you can have power over the privates. And if you're a private first class, you want to become, whatever the next one is, a corporal. I don't know what it is. But you want to go up so that you have power over more people.
There was actually an excellent documentary called The Invisible War that just talks about the rape in the military and how there are twice as many offenders of sexual assault going into the military than there is in the public.
Wow.
2 times.
The Army, at the height of the war, and I worked in processing for a time, at the height of the war, the Army, we were taking people and letting them have moral waivers. Moral waivers such as burglary, sexual assault, domestic violence, things of that nature. Those kind of people were being allowed in the military or in the Army. The Marines didn't take them, the Navy didn't take them, and the Air Force didn't take them, but by golly, we're going to take the bottom of the barrel in the Army at the height of the war. And now they're trying to get those people out of there, but here's the problem. They're there. And we've got to get them out. But it's not just a problem in the Army. This is a problem everywhere. We have a serious issue in this country, and I mean, we literally have a rape culture. And I don't know what has caused it, but there is definitely a lack of respect for just for your fellow man, your fellow human being. I mean, I just read a study that I don't know where it was, and I wish I had it, but basically they asked like 450 eighth grade girls when it is acceptable for a boy to force himself on them. And they're like, well, if he takes you out to Taco Bell, it's okay. You have to make out with him. And there was just various questions like that. And even our children think that they don't have a right to protect their own bodies, that it's acceptable behavior now. Look at what happened in Steubenville. Look at what happened with the young lady who just committed suicide. Her teacher, and the judge said that she was in control of that situation. My God, that is the most disgusting thing that I've ever heard.
Yeah, that was a case in Montana where the rapist was her teacher, and he's like 40-something, and she was 14 at the time, and she ended up killing herself. He was convicted for 30 days in jail, and then they just let him out.
Good God. It still baffles me. What do we do to stop this culture? Is it really just a matter of informing people? I mean, it seems like there's something written into our laws and our attitudes, and even on the news that you see on TV, the way they talk about it, it feels like everyone says rape's a bad thing, but maybe not everything is rape. Like, we're trying to get away from the word rape without really admitting that it's rape.
Well, that goes back to last year when Senator Todd Akins, and the GOP went out on the thing going legitimate rape, and then, well, if you were really raped, your body wouldn't let yourself get pregnant, and all that kind of BS, and that's complete crap.
Yeah, and that's so backwoods, and that's such an archaic and misogynistic way of thinking, and
But you have to. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Angie, please. No, please.
But you have to understand, even when this happened to our family, my first gut reaction after I finished throwing up was to immediately take my daughter to an abortion clinic and terminate this pregnancy, because of everything that I had ever been fed by the media, by, every outlet. And as a woman, up until that point, there is no way I would have carried a child conceived in rape, because of everything I had been taught, learned, that it's just not the thing you do. And I thought my daughter was the only person in the world that this had ever happened to. I had never heard of this before. I mean, we kind of went into our own little world for a while there because we didn't know what to do.
Well, I don't imagine other people would want to talk about that kind of thing.
Well, we've been told by people in the church. It's an uncomfortable, because we wanted people to understand my daughter didn't make a mistake. My daughter's never been on a date. My daughter went to one school dance. She's never going to have a prom. She's never going to have those sleepovers and giggle and do the normal things that a teenage girl had done. And don't get me wrong, I wish that my daughter would have had a boyfriend and been canoodling in the basement and it gone too far. That it happened that way. Not the way it did happen. Yeah. Because the way it did happen is just, I don't wish that on anybody. However, I am grateful for my grandson's life, and he deserves protection. She deserves to be protected because what we're facing potentially is my grandson's 2 now. 16 years of my daughter facing the man that raped her over and over again. So as Piper has said, I'm going to be raped continually for 16 years. Now, what is the mental state of my daughter going to be? What is the mental state of my grandson going to be? We have been inundated in the last few months with emails, hundreds, thousands. Sean Pruitt has received thousands of emails of women, of mothers, of parents, of husbands who thought that they were the only ones because nobody wants to talk about this. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but you try living this. You try walking this every single day. This is our lives, and you know what? These women have nothing to be ashamed of. Their children should not carry a stigma. These children are a gift, and I say that because every woman I've spoken with and heard from has said the same thing. That child is completely separate from the assault that took place on her body. That child, like Piper said in her little simple, as a 15-year-old way, I feel like me and this baby mom are in it together.
Yeah.
She felt like they were an island. And that child has saved us. I'm not saying, I don't wish this on anybody, but for us, it was the best decision. Well, and it has helped us heal. And now we're fighting. We are literally fighting for our lives and the life of our grandson and our daughter.
Yeah. It takes a lot of courage to do what you guys have done. And we just want you guys to know we appreciate you taking the time to share what's obviously a very sensitive and a very personal matter to help raise awareness of what is actually going on.
Yeah, I think it's great that you guys are doing this. And Kyle, obviously somebody has to step out and talk about it, or else nothing's going to get done about it, because there is this, in our society, there is this shame on the victim of rape. And that is so disturbing to me. But we actually shame the victim of rape, or in this child even, some may shame the child of a rape. And they are the last person that needs to be shamed.
They're unfortunately put on one side of the coin.
They don't just shame them. They blame them. They punish them. They ridicule them. And that's the wrong thing. But it's not just society. Okay, in our case, we have had, my daughter has legitimately been failed. And we have another rape victim. I don't know if Kyle talked about her in Wisconsin. The legal system has continually failed these women from step one all the way through. And I was a civilian police officer for a time. There is no way in hell at this point I would ever tell a woman to come forward and go through what we went through. And I regret that I ever encouraged my daughter to do that. But my feeling was, as a woman, we have to take responsibility, because if he hurts somebody else, that's on us. I'm going to have to live with that if some other mother's going through what I'm going through, another woman, or in our case, potentially another male victim is going through what my daughter's going through. I don't want that burden, or I didn't want that burden, but now I'm just like, what have I done? What have I done to my daughter and my grandson now by having them come forward? The police officer in our case didn't even come to our house. He met with my daughter watched her give her videotaped testimony, never contacted us. It took me 3.5 months of daily, weekly emails calling the prosecutor's office, the police department, to get blown off. Not one phone call ever returned to me. Not one email returned to me. Nothing. And I finally called and actually screamed and hollered until the Secretary of the Prosecuting Attorney's Office allowed me 5 minutes to talk to him. And I was told to get my daughter in counseling, but not to put her through this, because at the best we could hope for a Class C misdemeanor in the state of Missouri. And
why?
I said, you have done, because up until this past August, the statutes in Missouri were written in such a way. The best example is take what happened in Steubenville, Ohio, with that young lady that was raped by all those football players.
Right.
If that would have happened in the state of Missouri, they could not have prosecuted any of those football players for rape, because the way they had written the statute at the time was to be considered rape, you had to be over 21.
All right.
So you're 18, and you're not considered a rapist. And if you're over 14, it's not child molestation. So they just rectified that here in the state of Missouri this past August. But the thing is, and I'm sorry, when I went off on that, Steubenville, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. You know, we're going to have to go to a commercial pretty quick here. But it is incredibly disturbing to me that judges can sit and find themselves bound by words written by people who knows how long ago, and can't make a morally clear decision that seems obvious to most people. So we'll be back right after these messages.
The Ventana New Media Engine is a combination of technologies and processes that allow strategic delivery of corporate communications. It allows companies to leverage press releases, articles, blogs, audio-video podcasts for content-driven search engine optimization, including Google, Bing, and Yahoo. The Ventana New Media Engine channels include microsites, web feed publishers and news communities, online audio-video and image communities, social bookmarking and syndication sites, social journalism sites, and targeted blogs. This allows real-time placement of submitted content to sites with millions of unique visitors per month to drive URL authority for page 1, 2, or 3 search engine ranking.
Visit us online at ventananewmedia.com.
Motion graphics, visual effects, 3D animation, DVD and Blu-ray menu design, web development, your full production powerhouse. Go to thezoofx.com or call 818-535-4025 to schedule a consultation for your next project. Welcome to the Zoo. The Zoo FX.
Are you in the construction industry and seeking professional expert witness and consulting services? Count on Kulgusky & Associates. Their firm has been in business for over 12 years and has substantial experience in claim preparation, adjudication, and dispute resolution. This includes forensic analysis of time and money claims for delay, disruption, and acceleration on commercial, residential, industrial, and public works projects. They also specialize as expert witnesses on accident and personal injury cases for attorneys and insurance companies. This includes experience on over 145 cases, large and small, from slip, trip, and falls to hazard analysis in refinery, power plants, and sites under construction. Visit construction-expert.com or call 843-470-0459 for more information. Kulgusky & Associates.
All right, and we're back tonight with a very heavy topic, and something that people don't want to talk about, I feel like. How can we change this? Let's talk about that. I want to know, making people aware, obviously, but let's really talk about what needs to happen to change the laws and get people to realize that we can't... We got to live our lives with some sort of moral, moral compass. I don't know. So, Kyle,
well, we have to. Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead, Angie. No, go for it. You're doing great.
I was going to say, we really do need to empower women and men, because more and more men are in the same situation. Granted, they don't get pregnant, but more and more men are being assaulted in our culture as well. And we need to empower these people, and rape isn't. Yes, there is the rapes where they drag you off and beat you and leave you, but a majority of women who are raped are raped by an acquaintance that they've known for 24 hours or less. And in our country, there's a 1%, if you're lucky, rape conviction rate in our country. And our states, they need to get up to speed with this. They need to educate the judges. They need to educate the juries, because, like in our case, the defense attorney never did come out and say, but he alluded to the fact, and we had 6 men looking over at us, looking at my daughter, and to me, before this happened to us, I had the mindset, if you were raped and if you did get pregnant, you most certainly would not keep the pregnancy, you would terminate it. So that's the other problem we have. Women that choose to continue with the pregnancy and not terminate it, they're somehow even shunned by other rape victims, and that's wrong. These women are heroes. All rape victims, all rape survivors are heroes, and they need to be supported as such. And you know what? And if we start calling it what it is, you don't call a duck a chicken. It's rape. It's not unconsensual sexual contact. It's rape. Rape is rape. No means no.
Yeah.
My daughter did not want this to happen to her, and I will be damned if my child, and now my young, adult daughter, because she's a mother, so technically to me she's an adult woman, is not going to go through life thinking she did something wrong. Because you know what? You don't even have to verbally say no. Your body language. These women shut down. They need to be protected. They need to be protected by our police, our law enforcement. I mean, I can tell you that all interaction with the police department was so passé. They blew us off. They were very unconcerned about what happened to my child, all the way through the process. And I can't imagine what a young college student, first time away from home on a college campus, must feel like.
Yeah,
if they didn't have a support system.
Yeah, I don't even know. Yeah, how could that? The poor girls on college campus that have guys that are at a frat party and they're all drinking and they get drunk and she says no, and maybe even she's too drunk to even control it, and then she's wondering if she can even call that rape, and it is.
Exactly.
But she doesn't. It's because of our culture. There's something that kind of they just kind of go, oh no, that's non-consensual.
You take what you want, and you have look. We have Grand Theft Auto. How many 10 and 12-year-old boys are playing Grand Theft Auto and have the codes to rape the prostitute and to beat the prostitute? I mean, this is what we're raising our young men to be in this country now: is to virtually rape a prostitute on Grand Theft Auto, and they see it in every single TV show, and that's acceptable. And then you hit restart.
Yeah.
That's what we're teaching, and that's what we're teaching our girls.
Yeah,
that's what we're telling them. And the other thing is, though, our states, and Kyle's doing the documentary 31 States to bring awareness to this, to show the states that don't have any protections. And here's the thing, the U.S. Supreme Court, their standard is clear, convincing evidence. Why do rape victims have to have beyond a reasonable doubt? When the Supreme Court standard to come up with when they come up with a proceeding and a decision is clear, convincing. But why does a 14-year-old rape victim have to have a conviction and have to have beyond a reasonable doubt? These lawmakers, they need to come into 2013. Because it's happening, and they should not have to be at a higher standard than what the Supreme Court even says.
Yeah, and I think that part of the problem is that it really does come down to control of the body, and it is about, I think, a lot of times more than anything else, it is really about men still having, I think a lot of these laws are left over where, you know, a woman was a possession, you know, or a black man was a possession. And I was doing some research on this, and I was actually surprised to read that the laws are written very much like Jim Crow laws to be used against black people for racist reasons, but also because men felt that women were also just essentially property and not
exactly. And here's the other problem. In these cases, as we're finding out, you know, like Shauna Pruitt, she had her case for paternity and custody here in Missouri. The judge in her case, okay, and this is the other scary thing that everybody needs to understand. More and more rapists are finding out that they can use this as leverage. And that's how Shauna found herself. Her rapist basically blackmailed her. Hey, you drop the charges, I won't seek custody and I'll sign away my parental rights. And the judge in her case refused to bastardize, as he called it, her child. Okay, how many single parents do we have in this country, for crying out loud? And her father ended up having to adopt her daughter. So now Shauna's on the birth certificate with her father. That's the position her family was put in. And she said that she went weeks and nights with no sleep because she had to sit there and consider, I'm letting a rapist, you know, go free and not going to try to prosecute me, but I have to save myself and my child. No victim should be put in a position to have to bargain with the person, because again, they're not doing it to get away with it. They're doing it again to control and to have power.
Right.
And again, not physically rape, but they are, you know, essentially raping these women over again.
Back. Yeah, they're getting that power again over that person.
Yeah.
At that point, it's not just over that person; it's over an entire family and now a child.
So you're giving them even more power. You're giving them even more power.
Exactly. We have rape victims now who can't even tell their children, who can't mention this, or, I mean, I can't even, like the victim we have in Wisconsin, she's been jailed twice. Jailed twice for standing up for herself and her daughter. You know, that's not right. We have another victim in Georgia who was a Marine, and she was put out with a personality disorder when she reported her rape. Okay, we have another victim that came forward. Her rapist molested her child for 7 years because the court insisted that he get visitation.
Oh my!
And in the case in Wisconsin, she actually had her daughter taken away while they had thrown her in jail for contempt of court. They physically came and removed her child with the police, and she has not seen her daughter since last December, except on Skype sessions.
That's insane to me. It
is insane. Now, getting back to your question about, like, what do we do to help
what do we do?
This? The rape culture is so huge that I had a victim in Park Rapids, Minnesota, that I found just by talking to her at a bookstore, because anybody that I see, I start talking about this, and you either get like the eyes of like, oh my God, or shut up and leave me alone.
Right.
And she's like, yeah, that happened to me, except when I was raped violently 8 times in one night, went to the police and definitely had evidence that the police were like, we don't believe you.
Oh my God.
I don't know, like, if you can't turn to the authorities, who do you turn to?
Yeah.
Right now, that's why we're doing the documentary the way we're doing it. And we are getting women to come out and tell us their story. We believe you. We treat you with respect, and we let you tell us your story in your own words. And I believe that is the beginning of everyone standing up, because I believe if everyone stands up together instead of one at a time, everybody's going to have to take notice. And because Shauna Pruitt stood up, there is even a law that is going through the House of Representatives right now that would concern this on a federal level, that would then trickle down to the state level.
Really? Tell us about so what would that law entail? Tell us about that.
That law, I believe it's HR 2772, and the name is actually like the Rape Child Custody Act or something. That I was like, wow, okay. But it even goes in to say that there are between 25,000 and 32,000 of these pregnancies and births a year in the United States. that are rape conceived. And that blew my mind. What they're trying to do is pass a federal level saying that, hey, I believe they're using the clear and convincing evidence from the Supreme Court saying that, okay, like in Piper's case, there was definitely DNA evidence for the daughter, and so they could terminate his parental rights, and they're completely severed forever. And what this does is it trickles down to the state level, where if the states adopt this law, they actually get funding from the federal government to enact them.
And it also, just to piggyback on that, if your listeners go to our website, www.hopeafterrapeconception.org, they can find more information. We have our model legislation laid out that Shauna wrote, and this is what Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz is trying to get passed. We have 27 Democrats that are co-sponsoring it. We have 5 Republicans. Our goal is to have every single congressperson, every single senator in this country to co-sponsor this bill, because right now this bill has a 1 to 9% chance of passing, and that's not acceptable to me. And the thing is, the states must adopt our model legislation. It can't be you have to have a conviction. Even in the state of Ohio, because of the Castro case, they're trying to do something, and I just spoke with somebody that works in one of the coalitions for victims there in Ohio, and she told me that they just changed the language because they didn't feel comfortable unless there was a conviction of rape. Again, 1% get convicted of rape or forcible rape in this country because they plead out. And before they get caught again, they're going to rape 7 to 9 women, I think, on average, if they're ever caught again or prosecuted.
Yeah,
you guys think of the trail of victims that these men are leaving behind, and if they adopt it and you have the clear convincing evidence and you don't have to have a conviction, then there's going to be something. And I think that, again, if our authorities would become, if they would have more teeth and they would be more aggressive to stop this, we wouldn't even need these laws. It should be common sense, but clearly we're not dealing with that here. We have a victim also.
I think that gets back to, this needs to be a grassroots level movement. I don't think we can rely on the government or your state government to do anything without people standing up in those states and within America. And I think that's the great thing about the United States, is that when we see something wrong, we are able to stand up and actually do something about it. So that's what's exciting, that we can actually stand up and say, hey, there is a problem, let's address it. So our first level is to start educating people, like going on the radio and talking to anybody that we can about this issue. And then we can start to get people that are in this situation to speak up, share their stories, and they are unbelievable. Like Piper and Stephanie's, who is in Wisconsin, are just the tip of the iceberg. You haven't heard anything yet. And once you start to hear these, then it's up to the people that are hearing it, stand up and let's do something. So, call your legislator, call your congressman, and let's get something going.
Right. Well, I hope that I wish you guys a lot of luck. So now Piper is facing. Where are they at? Just real quick, where are they at in the process? What is she facing? Is he trying to get full custody, and then she ends up paying? Go ahead.
Oh, we have a guardianship. They're backdooring us by, basically, they have petitioned the court for sole physical custody. That us or Piper pay. We've had so many motions, it's hard to keep up with them, but they have requested that either my husband and I or my daughter Piper pay him child support, that we get phone conversations 30 minutes a week at his discretion, that his name be changed, his middle name and his last name be changed to this man's name. And basically they're saying they're using the fact that we have a guardianship in place because our daughter has not received any state or federal aid. We have paid for everything. Noah is on our insurance, so he's not been a burden to anybody in the state of Missouri. And we did that to protect Piper and Noah because, again, she's a minor. She can't get him insurance. And so they've used that, and he's basically, his attorney has said said because Piper's unwilling or unable to parent that he is. You know, he's been kicked out of the Army. He was convicted. He's got a federal cocaine conviction.
Yeah.
Felony.
All right. One more time. I just want your website, Kyle. We got to go. We're running over time. So I appreciate you guys coming on. It's 31states.com. And
yes.
Everything, you can find everything there, right?
Yeah, and then you can also go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/31states. Like our page. That helps us a lot with distribution.
Definitely go like their page on Facebook.
We are raising money by selling wristbands that say 31states.com, say no to rape custody. $10 for one, $25 for three. You can get those right on our website, and those go
All right,
straight.
go check it out, guys. We got to go. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming.
Jaandlu Underground. We'll see you next week for more original music from the hidden underbelly of society. Stay tuned for the Laura Penn and Happy Fun Time Hour coming up next on Excite Radio.
Are you looking for professional search engine optimization for you and your business? Look no further. Announcing Keyword Search Pros. KSP has been optimizing sites for years and knows how to increase your website's visibility and ranking. Their expert team will take you step by step and get the best possible results within your budget. And the outcome is always more visitors and increased traffic. Stop by their website and sign up for a free Google AdWords evaluation. For complete information on search engine optimization and pay-per-click management, visit keywordsearchpros.com.